Welcome to today's story.
Great to be diving in again.
So, ever wondered what happens when, the Hollywood action scene smacks right into actual real-world fighting expertise?
Like movie fights versus the real deal.
Exactly. And today, we've got this incredible, unexpected story out of Bangkok. Picture this. Jason Statham, action star, right?
Yeah, we all know him.
And he's in a real Muay Thai ring. Not for a movie, he's actually sparring.
Okay, sparring who, though?
Get this, a two-time Muay Thai champion, nicknamed the Tiger.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a setup. A real champion.
Be a real champion.
Yeah.
In a famous Muay Thai gym, Somsak's home turf, basically. Statham was there as, like, an honored guest.
Right, so it wasn't meant to be a fight initially. It just sort of happened.
Pretty much. Start off friendly, showing techniques back and forth, Statham showing some moves, Somsak showing his.
Here's for respect between practitioners, yeah.
But then something shifted. Somsak may be feeling confident, maybe a bit playful, maybe a bit cocky, I don't know. He issues this impromptu challenge, like, let's actually spar around.
No way. Just like that.
Just like that. And the gym, the crowd there, they went nuts. Phones out, recording. You can imagine the buzz.
Oh, I bet. Suddenly it's not just a demonstration anymore. It's real.
Yeah. And think about Statham for a second. He's, 58 at this point?
Right. Not exactly a spring chicken in fighting terms, even if he looks amazing.
Exactly. So you've got his movie image, the tough guy, versus the reality of age, and facing a young, current champion in his prime.
There must have been some hesitation. I mean, the risk of getting shown up or even hurt.
You could almost feel that, internal calculation, the screen persona versus physical reality. Does he back down? Does that fighter's instinct kick in? He doesn't want to seem limited,
Yeah, that's tough. And Somsak, what's going through his head, do you think?
Probably youth, energy, maybe a bit of, cocky underestimation. Sees the movie star, maybe thinks it's an easy spar, a fun story.
I sparred with Jason Statham.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Probably didn't expect a serious challenge.
So you've got this perfect storm brewing. Age versus youth, screen versus reality, expectation versus, what actually happened next?
It's a fascinating dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so much more than just a physical contest. It's mental. It's about perception.
Absolutely. So if this whole scenario has you curious, if you want to know how this unlikely showdown played out,
Which, let's be honest, who wouldn't?
right, then do us a quick favor. Like this video if you're enjoying the setup.
Definitely helps us out.
And subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. We find some really interesting stories.
And drop a comment.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think of this setup. Just put a number 1 if you're hooked and want to hear the West.
Or, if it's not quite your thing, leave a number 2. All feedback helps us figure out what you find interesting.
Yeah, we really appreciate you letting us know.
Okay, so the scene is set. The bell hasn't rung yet, but the tension's there. Statham and Somsak are in the ring.
No script, no choreography. Just 2 guys, a challenge, and a whole lot of eyes watching.
Now, please listen to this story.
So the round starts, and initially, it goes pretty much how you might expect, right?
Yeah, Somsak comes out fast. He's sharp. Quick jab, snaps Statham's head back a bit.
Follows up with a low kick, testing the waters. Then I think a straight right. He's showing that speed and power advantage.
Definitely looks like the younger, faster champion is in control. Statham's mostly defensive, covering up.
But here's where it gets interesting. Statham isn't just taking hits. He's processing, right? You can almost see him analyzing.
Yeah, not panicking. He's weathered storms before, maybe not exactly like this. But he has experience. He's reading the cues, the timing.
Looking for patterns, maybe? Waiting for that one opening, however small.
And he finds it. Somsak throws another combination, maybe gets a little predictable, a little too confident.
And Statham slips inside, avoids the worst of it, and counters. But not to the head.
No, it's a hook. A really solid hook to the body.
Oof. Body shots are different, aren't they?
Totally different. And you could see it landed clean. Somsak wasn't expecting it there, and it visibly affects him. Takes his wind, maybe?
Yeah, it definitely surprised him. You could see him pause just for a fraction of a second. The whole momentum of the spar just shifts.
Right there, that's the moment. The confidence wavers a little.
And Statham sees it. He presses, but cleverly, not wildly.
He throws a feint, gets Somsak to react, maybe raises guard high.
Leaving an opening.
And bang, another body shot. This one digs right into the liver.
Oh, the liver shot, that's a fight ender sometimes. Even in sparring, that hurts like hell.
And it buckles Somsak, doubles him over. You can see the pain register immediately. He's hurt.
And this is maybe the most telling part of the whole thing. Statham stops.
Exactly. He could have jumped on him, landed more shots. Samsak was vulnerable.
But he doesn't. He steps back, gives him space.
Yeah, there's this moment of, like, mutual recognition. Statham knows he landed the decisive blow. Samsak knows he's been caught clean by something unexpected. It wasn't about humiliating him.
It was about making a point, maybe.
Yeah.
Showing that experience, that fight IQ could find a way.
So Samsak recovers, nods, touches gloves again. The rest of the round plays out, but it's different.
Yeah, more even, right? More cautious, maybe, from both sides. The dynamic has totally changed.
Definitely more respect. When the round ends, there's no question about what just happened.
Handshake. And then Samsak does something really classy.
Yeah. What was that?
He raises Statham's arm, like a salute,
Yeah.
in front of everyone in the gym.
Wow. That speaks volumes, doesn't it? Acknowledging the skill, the surprise.
Huge respect.
Good.
And apparently, afterwards, Samsak was genuinely curious. He went up to Statham.
Asking about the technique.
Yeah, basically saying that wasn't just movie fighting.
Yeah.
He wanted to understand the setup, the body shot. He realized it wasn't just luck.
He saw the strategy behind it, the way Statham adapted.
Exactly. And Statham apparently said something really insightful along the lines of, life isn't just about how hard you can hit.
Okay.
It's about how you adapt when you're outmatched. When you can't be faster, you have to be smarter.
Wow. That's powerful. Using intelligence when pure speed isn't enough.
And there's this old trainer there watching the whole thing. Thai guy.
Mm-hmm.
He apparently nodded and said this old Thai saying, "Don't judge a tiger by his age, but by his scars."
By his scars, meaning his experience, what he's been through.
Exactly. The wisdom gained from past battles.
So what was the lasting impact? Did Samsak hold a grudge?
Not at all, apparently.
Yeah.
Quite the opposite. He invited Statham to come back and train with him anytime.
That's great. A learning experience for him, too.
Totally. Samsak supposedly said he learned that day that wisdom, like genuine strategic wisdom, can sometimes overcome strength and speed. And that earning respect is maybe more valuable than just winning.
That's a huge takeaway for a young champion. Humility learned in a tough way, but maybe the best way.
For sure. And it brings up so many interesting points for anyone listening,
Yeah, like what are the big themes here?
Well, obviously, pride coming before a fall, Samsak's initial confidence, maybe bordering on arrogance.
Right. And then the humility needed to acknowledge defeat, or at least being vested in that moment and learn from it.
Absolutely. It also highlights continuous learning. Samsak, already a champion, still found something crucial to learn from someone outside his immediate discipline.
And the big one, experience, patience, strategy. How they can counter raw physical advantages like youth and speed. Statham didn't try to outspeed Samsak, he outthought him.
It really challenges that idea that once you hit a certain age, you're somehow less capable or relevant, especially physically. Statham showed that inner fire, that experience, is a weapon, too.
It's a different kind of strength. And the mutual respect at the end, that intergenerational learning, the champion learning from the veteran actor, that's pretty cool.
It really drives home that life experience, all those knocks and lessons learned along the way. It really is a kind of superpower. It gives you tools that younger people just haven't had the time to acquire yet.
So it makes you think, doesn't it? About your own life, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Think about your own scars, Not literal ones necessarily, but the scars of experience. The tough times, the lessons learned, the challenges overcome.
How have those shaped you? What unique strengths or perspectives have they given you that maybe you don't always recognize?
Because, like the old trainer said about the tiger, maybe those scars are actually the true measure of your strength and wisdom.
Something to definitely reflect on.
Jason Statham stood in the center of a dimly lit boxing ring, feeling the humid Bangkok air clinging to his skin like a damp blanket. The roar of the crowd, a mix of local fighters, tourists, and curious onlookers, echoed around him, but his focus remained locked on the Muay Thai champion packing across from him. At 58, the dull ache in his knees and the thundering of his heart reminded him that he wasn't just playing an action hero anymore. This was terrifyingly real. The champion, Samsak the Tiger, bounced effortlessly on his toes, his lean muscles rippling under bronzed skin. A confident smirk played across his face as he shadowboxed, each movement fluid and precise. The crowd murmured excitedly. They could sense the mismatch, the Hollywood star versus the local legend. A drop of sweat trickled down Jason's temple as he considered how quickly this morning had spiraled out of control. Just hours ago, he'd been an honored guest at this renowned gym, and now he was about to engage in combat with a fighter in his prime. What the hell am I doing here? Jason thought, drawing a measured breath to calm the adrenaline surging through his veins. Pride and uncertainty battled within him, neither willing to yield ground. For decades, he'd portrayed unstoppable tough guys on screen, his characters weathering impossible odds and emerging victorious. But here and now, with no stunt coordinator or second takes, he was simply an aging man facing a dangerous opponent while dozens of strangers watched, phones recording, waiting for something spectacular or spectacularly humiliating. The last thing Jason wanted was to become viral fodder, some cautionary tale about an old actor who couldn't accept his limitations. But when the champion had called him out in front of everyone, something primal had awakened inside him. That familiar fire, the one that had driven him from competitive diving to Hollywood success, refused to be extinguished by caution or common sense. Across the ring, Somsak's eyes burned with confident fire. Every bounce, every playful weave of his head screamed youthful energy and absolute certainty. He clearly thought the famous older actor would be easy pickings, a trophy to add to his collection, perhaps even a story to tell for years to come. That cocky underestimation lit a stubborn ember in Jason's chest. He'd been written off before as a diver, as an actor, as an action star, and he wasn't about to let it happen again without a fight. A flicker of doubt crept in as Jason rolled his shoulders, feeling the years of stunts and training in each crack and pop of his joints. It had been a long time since he'd faced a real opponent. Sure, he stayed in remarkable shape and trained regularly for film stunts, but choreographed fights were nothing like trading blows with a two-time Muay Thai champion. What am I proving here? He wondered momentarily. But the memory of the champion's taunts and the silent expectations of the crowd snapped him back to the present. There was no backing down now. Jason exhaled slowly, steeling his resolve. He may not have youth on his side, but he had something perhaps more valuable: experience. Decades of discipline, of falling and rising again, of pushing past pain and fear. His muscles still remembered how to fight, perhaps not as quickly, but with a precision that only comes from years of practice. As the referee motioned them to the center of the ring, Jason felt the flutter of fear in his gut transform into focused determination. In the 10 seconds before the first strike, time seemed to slow. Jason could hear his own heartbeat, feel the canvas beneath his feet, sense the weight of every eye in the room. This moment wasn't just about proving something to a cocky champion or an eager crowd. It was about proving to himself that age might have slowed his step, but it hadn't diminished his courage or his fighting spirit. The bell clanged for round one, and as Jason raised his fists, he made a silent promise to himself. Win or lose, he would leave everything in this ring. It all started earlier that day at a renowned Muay Thai gym tucked away in a bustling corner of Bangkok. The afternoon sun beat down relentlessly on the open-air training pavilion, where the rhythmic thap-thap of gloves striking pads echoed through the humid air. Inside, fighters of various ages honed their craft, their concentrated expressions telling stories of discipline and dedication. At the center of this martial arts sanctuary stood the gym's pride and joy, a champion fighter named Somsak, the Tiger. Lean and powerfully built, the 28-year-old had already claimed 2 national championships and was demonstrating techniques for an attentive audience. Every thunderous kick he unleashed on the heavy bag drew gasps and appreciative applause from onlookers. The focused atmosphere shifted noticeably when Jason stepped into the gym as an honored guest. Training sessions paused as heads turned toward the Hollywood action star. Dressed in a simple gray t-shirt and black athletic pants, Jason offered a polite smile and a respectful wide bow to those present. The buzz of excited whispers rippled through the crowd. Local fighters, trainers, and a handful of foreign tourists couldn't contain their excitement at seeing the famous actor in person. Somsak, not one to be upstaged in his own domain, finished wrapping his hands deliberately before approaching the newcomer. The gym owner, Prackett, a weathered man with decades of Muay Thai experience etched into his face, proudly introduced them inside the ring. "Jason, this is our champion, Somsak. Somsak, I'm sure you recognize Mr. Statham." The two men shook hands firmly. "I've heard impressive things about you, multiple titles, over 100 wins, started training as a child," Jason said warmly, his gravelly voice carrying genuine admiration. He'd done his homework on the gym and its star fighter. Somsak's chest swelled visibly with pride. "That's right, I started when I was 7, he replied with a confident smile. "I've seen all your movies, you fight well, for an actor." The last words carried a playful challenge that drew chuckles from the audience. Jason laughed good-naturedly. "I try to keep in shape," he said, patting his midsection, "though I doubt I could keep up with you in a real fight." His modesty seemed genuine, but the glint in his eyes revealed he wasn't entirely lacking confidence. Eager to showcase his art, Somsak called for a training pad. A trainer quickly stepped forward, holding one up. With practiced precision, Somsak spun into a lightning-fast roundhouse kick. Crack, his shin connected with explosive force, causing the pad holder to stagger backward. The crowd erupted in applause, and even Jason whistled appreciatively. "Impressive power," Jason acknowledged sincerely. "I think I felt the breeze from that kick all the way over here." His quip lightened the mood, drawing laughs from the observers. Somsak grinned and beckoned Jason forward with a wave. "Your turn, Mr. Hollywood." A trainer held up pads and Jason stepped forward, slipping on a pair of gloves. He threw a solid 1-2 punch combination that landed with satisfying thuds. It wasn't as flashy as Somsak's spectacular kick, but it demonstrated legitimate technique. Surprised murmurs spread through the onlookers. Clearly, the man could hit. Somsak's eyebrows raised slightly. "Not bad, but how about kicks?" He patted a pad strapped to his forearm, inviting Jason to test his kicking ability against him directly. Jason knew his limitations. At 58, his flexibility wasn't what it once was, but he couldn't resist the implicit challenge. Setting his stance with determination, he swung his leg into the pad on Somsak's arm. His shin connected with a respectable crack that echoed through the gym. The crowd cheered encouragingly. Somsak playfully exaggerated, stumbling backward, shaking out his arm dramatically. "Hey, not bad at all," he laughed. "You sure you haven't fought professionally before?" The atmosphere had transformed from a casual demonstration to something electric with anticipation. What had begun as a friendly exchange was edging toward a genuine challenge. Somsak rolled his shoulders, bounced lightly on his toes, and raised his gloves. "How about it then?" he called out with an eager grin. "One round, you and me, friendly sparring." The gym erupted in excited cheers. Phones appeared from pockets as people positioned themselves for the best recording angle. Jason blinked, caught slightly off guard despite the trajectory of their interaction. He raised his hands in a gesture meant to calm the situation. "I'm not sure that's wise," he began diplomatically. "Just like contact," Somsak interrupted, his smile unwavering. "I promised to go easy." The challenge was polite but unmistakable. Within minutes, the impromptu match was set. What had begun as a friendly demonstration had morphed into something far more significant, a test of pride, skill, and generational divide. The crowd pressed in around the ring, their eager faces forming a wall of anticipation. Phones were raised high, recording devices at the ready, as everyone sensed they were about to witness something worth capturing. Jason and Somsak moved to opposite corners of the ring, each man suddenly caught in the gravity of what they'd agreed to. A seasoned trainer with salt and pepper hair and faded tattoos along his forearms volunteered as referee, shouting out quick ground rules in a mix of Thai and English that everyone understood. 1 round, light contact sparring, no dangerous techniques like elbows or knees to the head. Both men nodded in solemn agreement, their eyes locked across the canvas expanse that now seemed to stretch between them like an unbridgeable gulf. The air in the gym grew thick with tension, charged with electricity that seemed to dance along everyone's skin. It was billed as friendly sparring, a casual exhibition, but the energy in the room told a different story. This was a confrontation, a genuine clash of wills that transcended mere entertainment. Jason shook out his arms and bounced lightly on his toes, trying to loosen muscles that suddenly felt stiff with anxiety. His heart pounded against his ribs like a prisoner demanding release. A lifetime of stunt work and training had prepared him for physical challenges, but this was different. He wasn't following a choreographed sequence with predetermined outcomes. He was facing a legitimate fighter who held nothing but certainty in his own victory. Taking a deep breath of the warm, humid air that hung in the gym like a damp blanket, Jason attempted to center himself. Focus. Am I really doing this? The thought crossed his mind with a mixture of disbelief and wry amusement. Just an hour ago, he'd been an honored guest receiving a warm welcome, and now he stood moments away from trading blows with a national champion who was young enough to be his son. Someone handed him a spare mouthguard from the gym, slightly worn but clean enough, and he popped it in, wincing at the unfamiliar rubbery taste. The familiar sensation triggered muscle memories from long ago. The weight of gloves, the restriction of the mouthpiece, the heightened awareness that came with knowing someone was about to try to hit you. With each passing second, ancient instincts stirred to life within him, dormant reflexes awakening from their long slumber. Across the ring, Somsak was a whirlwind of preparation, rolling his neck and shoulders with fluid grace, shadowboxing quick combinations that sliced through the air with frightening precision. One of his trainers, a weathered man with cauliflower ears and eyes that had seen thousands of fights, murmured rapid-fire advice, entirely cautioning him not to underestimate the foreigner despite his age. Somsak gave a half-listening nod, his focus already narrowing to the task at hand. The young champion wasn't worried. If anything, his relaxed demeanor and casually confident smile suggested he viewed this as little more than an entertaining diversion, perhaps even a chance to add a memorable story to his growing legend. Why wouldn't he be confident? He had youth, speed, technique, and hundreds of hours of real combat experience on his side. Jason could see it all written in the young man's posture and relaxed face. Somsak was utterly convinced this would be an easy, entertaining bout that would end with the Hollywood star being humbled, gently perhaps, but humbled nonetheless. That casual confidence acted like fuel on the embers of Jason's competitive spirit. A familiar heat spread through his chest, and he raised his gloves to his face, steadying his breathing with deliberate control. Time to show them what this old man can do, he told himself, finding strength in his own stubborn pride. Around the ring, the spectators buzzed with excited speculation. An older Thai gentleman with a network of scars above his brow, likely a former fighter, himself murmured to his companion that the foreign actor might have a few surprises in him, nodding the way Jason carried himself with the unmistakable bearing of someone who had faced physical challenges before. A younger fighter with a fresh bruise blooming along his jawline dismissed the observation with a confident shake of his head, insisting that the champion's youth and technical skill would surely prevail, probably within the first minute. Money began changing hands as informal bets were placed. Most favored Somsak overwhelmingly, but a few contrarians put small sums on the outsider, perhaps hoping for a miraculous upset or simply showing respect for Jason's courage. The atmosphere was electric with tension and anticipation. Nobody knew exactly what was about to unfold, and that uncertainty had everyone riveted to the spot, unwilling to miss a single moment of the coming confrontation. Prackett, the gym owner, watched from the edge of the ring with his arms crossed tightly across his chest, his expression revealing both concern and excitement, worried about potential injuries or embarrassment, yet clearly captivated by the unexpected drama unfolding in his establishment. Somsak caught Jason's eye across the ring and flashed him a playful wink, still committed to his role as the confident champion putting on a show for his admiring audience. The gesture wasn't meant to be cruel, just a light-hearted acknowledgement of what everyone assumed would be the inevitable outcome. Jason answered with a small, tight nod, his gaze intensifying as he focused inward. Despite the adrenaline flooding his system and the persistent voice of doubt whispering in his ear, he felt a strange sense of calm beginning to settle over him. It was a familiar sensation from his competitive diving days, standing on the high platform with all eyes trained upon him, knowing that success or failure would be determined in the next few heartbeats. Back then, he had learned to master his nerves, to transform anxiety into laser-like focus. Now, decades later, he drew upon that same discipline, that same ability to narrow his world down to the essential task at hand. He knew he couldn't match this kid's raw speed or technical prowess. That would be foolish to even attempt. But he had experience, patience, and decades of understanding his own body's capabilities. He recalled an old lesson from a karate instructor who had trained him for a film role years ago: let the opponent come to you. Stay relaxed, find your moment, then strike with everything you have. Jason wasn't about to rush headlong at this trained fighter like some overconfident novice. If he had any chance at all, it would come from patience and timing, from weathering the initial storm and finding that perfect opening. Win or lose, he was determined to walk away with his dignity intact, perhaps even earning a measure of respect from everyone present, including the cocky young champion across from him. On the other side of the ring, Somsak was practically vibrating with impatience to begin. He bounced lightly on the balls of his feet, keeping his muscles warm and loose with quick shadow punches that cut through the humid air with precision and power. For him, this impromptu match felt like pure fun, a break from the grueling routine of serious training and high-stakes competition. He had faced dozens of opponents in legitimate tournaments, weathering brutal exchanges and emerging victorious through skill and sheer determination. But this was entertainment, a chance to showcase his abilities against an unlikely opponent while giving the crowd something to remember. He planned to put on a proper show, perhaps toy with the actor a bit, demonstrate a few flashy techniques, land a couple of solid but controlled shots to remind everyone why he was the champion, and then graciously accept Jason's inevitable surrender. The possibility that he might be at any real risk barely crossed his mind. After all, Jason was visibly fit and clearly knew how to throw a punch, but he wasn't a professional fighter, and certainly not in his prime. "I'll make it quick and flashy," Somsak thought, excitement buzzing in his chest like electricity. "Give everyone a good show without embarrassing him too badly." The referee motioned both men to the center of the ring, his weathered face solemn with the responsibility of keeping things safe and controlled. Jason and Somsak stepped forward until they stood face to face under the bright gym lights, close enough to feel each other's measured breath. Up close, they were a study in contrasts. Jason, the seasoned veteran with determination etched into every line of his face, eyes revealing neither fear nor overconfidence, just focused resolve. And Somsak, the young lion in his prime, radiating self-assurance and barely contained energy, his smooth features revealing absolute conviction in his superiority. They touched gloves in a show of mutual respect that transcended their different backgrounds and expectations. The crowd fell into hushed silence, the collective intake of breath creating a vacuum of anticipation that seemed to swallow all other sounds. The tension was palpable, hanging in the air like the humid Bangkok heat that caused sweat to bead on foreheads throughout the room. This was the moment where speculation ended and reality began, where pride and skill would be tested in the most direct way possible. Jason slid his left foot back and raised his hands into a ready guard, assuming a stance that blended the boxing and martial arts postures he was most comfortable with after years of film training. His weight settled evenly on both feet, knees slightly bent, shoulders relaxed but ready. Across from him, Somsak settled into his stance, left foot forward, hands high, weight balanced perfectly on the balls of his feet, the coiled posture of a Muay Thai striker ready to pounce or retreat with equal efficiency. Both men stared intently at each other, muscles tensed, each waiting for the other to make the first move in this unexpected dance they had committed to perform. The referee glanced between them, sensing the building tension, and shouted, "Yak," the Thai command to begin, then quickly stepped back to give them space, officially setting the confrontation in motion. For a moment, neither Jason nor Somsak moved, like the pause before lightning strikes. Jason's senses seemed to sharpen to a preternatural degree. He could hear a distant car horn blaring outside the gym, the rustle of someone shifting their weight on the canvas, the deep breath he drew through his nose. In that frozen second between anticipation and action, he reminded himself once more, "Stay calm, wait for your moment, here we go." And then the fight was on. Somsak struck first with the explosive confidence of youth. He advanced with a lightning-fast jab that caught Jason on the forearm, followed immediately by a low roundhouse kick that connected with the older man's thigh with a dull thud. The crowd gasped and cheered as Jason absorbed the impact, grimacing slightly but maintaining his defensive stance. The champion smiled, bouncing lightly on his feet, clearly enjoying his early success. Each of his movements was fluid and precise, textbook Muay Thai executed with the effortless grace that comes only from thousands of hours of training. Jason circled cautiously, his breathing measured despite the stinging pain spreading through his leg. Decades of stunt work had taught him how to take hits, and beneath the discomfort, his analytical mind was working, studying, calculating. He noticed how Somsak telegraphed his kicks with a slight shift of his shoulders, how the young fighter's eyes narrowed just before launching a combination. These were the subtle details that experience revealed, invisible to most but crystal clear to someone who had spent a lifetime reading physical cues. "Come on, Hollywood, show us what you've got," someone shouted from the crowd, drawing laughter. Somsak pressed forward with growing confidence, unleashing a flurry of strikes. Most glanced off Jason's tight guard, but a straight right slipped through, connecting with his jaw. The impact rattled his teeth despite the mouthguard, and for a moment, stars danced at the edge of his vision. The young champion sensed his advantage and moved in, certain he was moments away from ending this exhibition in spectacular fashion. That certainty was his first mistake. As Somsak committed to a powerful cross, Jason shifted his weight ever so slightly, a subtle adjustment born of instinct rather than thought. The punch grazed his cheek instead of landing flush. In that momentary opening, Jason countered with a short, sharp hook to the body that caught Somsak completely off guard. The impact wasn't devastating, but it was perfectly placed, landing just under the ribs where breath lives. Somsak's eyes widened in surprise as air rushed from his lungs. A murmur rippled through the spectators. This wasn't following the expected script. Somsak recovered quickly, but something had changed. The easy confidence in his eyes had been replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. He attacked again, this time with more aggression than precision, throwing a wild combination that left openings in his defense. Jason weathered the storm, deflecting what he could and absorbing what he couldn't, waiting for his moment with the patience of a man who understood that fights aren't always won by those who hit hardest, but by those who hit smartest. When that moment came, Somsak, slightly off balance after a missed kick, Jason capitalized with surgical precision. A quick step forward, a feint to the head that drew the champion's guard up, then a devastating right hook to the liver. Somsak doubled over, his face a mask of shock and discomfort. The crowd fell silent, collectively holding their breath. Jason could have pressed his advantage, could have sought to humble the young fighter with a flurry of his own, but he stepped back instead, allowing Somsak space to recover. It wasn't mercy, it was respect, fighter to fighter. Their eyes met across the small distance between them, and something passed between them, a mutual recognition that transcended age and background. In that moment, they weren't an aging actor and a young champion. They were simply two warriors acknowledging each other's courage. As Somsak straightened, his expression had transformed. The cocky grin was gone, replaced by something rarer and more valuable: genuine respect. The remainder of the round unfolded as a true exchange between equals, each man giving and taking with measured purpose, neither seeking to dominate but rather to learn from the other. When the bell finally rang, ending their unlikely encounter, both fighters were breathing hard, carrying the marks of their exchange, but standing tall with undeniable dignity. In the expectant silence that followed, Jason extended his gloved hand. After a moment's hesitation, Somsak grasped it firmly, then unexpectedly raised Jason's arm in a fighter's salute. The gym erupted in thunderous applause, phones still recording what had become something far more meaningful than anyone had anticipated, not a humiliation or a upset, but a perfect illustration of how experience and youth, when approached with mutual respect, could elevate rather than diminish each other. As the commotion in the gym gradually settled, Jason and Somsak sat side by side on a wooden bench, their bodies glistening with sweat under the fluorescent lights. The young champion dabbed at a small cut above his eyebrow with a towel, a badge of honor from their unexpected battle. Jason winced slightly as he rotated his shoulder, feeling every one of his 58 years in the dull ache of his muscles. Neither man spoke immediately. The silence between them carried the weight of mutual respect that words might only diminish. Finally, Somsak turned to Jason with genuine curiosity in his eyes. "Where did you learn to counter like that? That wasn't just movie fighting." His English was careful but clear, his tone free from the playful arrogance that had colored their earlier exchange. Jason smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening. "Life isn't just about how hard you can hit," he replied, echoing wisdom he'd gained far beyond film sets. "It's about how you adapt when you're outmatched. When you can't be faster, you have to be smarter." He tapped his temple with a still-wrapped hand. "Experience doesn't just mean you're old, it means you've collected lessons that can't be taught any other way." The gym had returned to its normal rhythm around them, but several older trainers lingered nearby, nodding approvingly at Jason's words. One weathered coach with silver hair approached with 2 bottles of cold water, handing them to the fighters with a respectful nod. "You know," the old trainer said in heavily accented English, "in Thailand we have saying, don't judge tiger by his age but by his scars." He gestured toward Jason with open admiration. "Today, young fighters learn valuable lesson." Later, as the afternoon sun cast long shadows through the gym's windows, Somsak escorted Jason to the entrance. The young champion had insisted on exchanging contact information and extended an open invitation to train together whenever Jason returned to Bangkok. As they shook hands at the doorway, Somsak's expression grew earnest. "I won't forget today," he said simply. "I came close to making biggest mistake thinking age means weakness." His eyes reflected sincere admiration. "Instead, you showed me that wisdom can overcome strength and respect is worth more than victory." As Jason stepped into the bustling Bangkok street, he carried with him more than just the satisfying ache of honest exertion. He had reinforced a truth that resonated deeply, that the passage of time takes much, but also gives gifts that youth cannot possess: patience, perspective, and the quiet confidence that comes from weathering life's many rounds. The unexpected showdown between Jason and Somsak wasn't just an entertaining story, it carries powerful lessons for us all, especially those in our golden years. In that humid Bangkok gym, we witnessed how pride comes before a fall, but humility in defeat transforms weakness into strength. Somsak's journey from arrogance to respect shows we're never too accomplished to learn something new. Jason's victory reminds us that experience can indeed triumph over youth. When you've lived through decades of challenges, fallen and risen countless times, you possess wisdom that no amount of youthful energy can match. Your patience, strategic thinking, and self-awareness become weapons more powerful than raw strength or speed. Perhaps most importantly, this story shatters the myth that we become irrelevant with age. At nearly 60, Jason proved that our capabilities aren't defined by birthdays. You're never too old to surprise others or yourself. The fire that burns within doesn't have to dim unless we allow it to. The beautiful mutual respect that emerged between these fighters from different generations illustrates what's possible when we open ourselves to learning from each other. Youth offers innovation and energy. Age contributes wisdom and perspective. When these forces combine rather than compete, something magical happens. Remember, dear friends, your life experience isn't baggage, it's your superpower. Use it wisely, wear it proudly, and never let anyone convince you that your time has passed.